Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, hello. Welcome to the great Love and Sex Jazz Lounge.
Yes.
Where we have lovemaking music in the background. I'm Emily.
And I'm Percy. And today we have with us a special guest. We have Kel Monroe from Ask a Bi Guy. And today we're going to interview Kel a little bit on what he does and get to some real juicy questions for us.
Okay, let's get going.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they can hear us right now. Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's pull up a chair.
I noticed that our audience here doesn't know who Kel is, and I know that we like to get together and talk about how to help people to have real, true, good connections that involve all of a human being, including sexuality, but also including heart and intellect. And I know that Kel is in the same business of doing that in dating, but also in business, also in all sorts of different ways, and in art. Would just like to throw out the question: how do you go about in your life in helping people to have this, essential connection that primarily we all want and long for?
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is a great opportunity, and if you date well and you relate well, then you can also be a good friend. You can also be a great employee or employer, just a great person, and it's all holistic. So what I like to do, and what I want to do with my whole side business of Ask the Bi Guy, and I'm flagging my bi wares here. We got the bisexual pride flag. I did not, but the great nonprofit Bisexual Resource Center created this shirt. You might not be able to see all these words that form the heart are the many different terms that you could use to describe a sexuality spectrum that isn't simply straight or totally gay.
Right. So
whether it's pansexual,
multisexual, bicurious,
fluid.
Yeah, fluid.
Bi-furious.
Queer, yes.
Bi-curious. That's in there somewhere.
Bi-curious.
Yep.
Bi-romantic.
Omnisexual.
Yeah. Fluid, heteroflexible, homoflexible. It's all under the umbrella of what we call bi-plus, meaning that, it's semantic nuance, just whatever makes you feel included as and counted as a person, because it's an often invisibilized community.
And as you say that, that goes back to the original intent of this channel, is great love and sex through IFS, internal family systems, and the whole internal family systems tagline is about all parts are welcome.
That's right.
No judgment, no criticism, even when a person is having a temper tantrum.
Right.
I welcome that temper tantrum part.
Welcome, and having curiosity and courage with the way that we address it.
Yeah.
However, that aspect of this human being is allowed to exist, is allowed to be there, allowed to be spoken for and heard.
And are all parts of ourselves welcome to ourselves, actually. There's the interpersonal relationship, which a lot of people focus on. How can I be successful in dating? And the arrow is always outward to other, to initiate a conversation at a bar or to develop an effective online dating profile. But there's the intra-personal communication with yourself. Are you welcoming your temper tantrum, or at least feeling it, and having a literacy of the topography of your own emotional range? How can you serve yourself to serve others and to be in connection with other people and to make good relationship choices?
Wow.
And I also wonder, like in temper tantrums or when there's conflict and you're feeling like frustrated and you can't say something that you really want to say, I wonder also in terms of explaining the energy and the psychology behind attraction, if some of that conflict is really what lights up the sexual chakra versus the nice guy who you could just have really a great conversation with, like you're having a conversation with a girlfriend. And does that really create sexual attraction? Is it too nice? Because I've dated the too nice guy syndrome.
You know, when you mentioned the check boxes, that I feel like that's connected to the nice guy idea. You know, there's all these things on paper. This person looks like a good match. You know, they have these enough things in common, enough sort of differences to create a little tension.
Yes.
You know, all that is well and good, but as, you know, many people find out, you meet them in person, even after you've corresponded by text and even voice telephone conversations, and then you meet them, and it's just kind of a fizzle.
There's no
you
charge.
know, those all-knowing pheromones aren't, you know, bike messengering messages to each other, and it just you don't necessarily feel that. And what is the thing that creates the charge?
What is it? What is it, guys? What's your take on it? We'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah. Well, I was totally curious about. I was about to ask Kel, like, okay, what is happening when there's no charge, right?
To go through that window of nice guy, that's so loaded and fascinating culturally. Like, why do we have what is the nice guy? And,
what is the nice guy?
And why is that such a fizzle? Why is that such a sort of a flop? And I think a lot of what we conceptualize as the nice guy is someone who is so agreeable and conciliatory and nice, and there's a feeling of a lack of opinions and backbone, a sense of having a rooted, flag-planted sense of yourself, because they don't want to upset the apple cart. They have their eyes on the prize, and I think the nice guy feels like that in order to get, and there's such a language of success and having and possession, to get the girl, to have the relationship, and still outward focused, to acquire that commodity, that you can't upset that apple cart. You don't want to be disagreeable, and you want to be nice and friendly, and that's somehow a prescription to win people's hearts, when in reality you can be a little abrasive. You can have some opinions. You know, God forbid, have a core sense of values, where you might have a genuine, a bit of a rift with someone, and you can get into it, and you get into something a little bit, you have some passionate disagreements, there's tension there.
And is it really, it's that tension and disagreement.
It's hot.
Right.
It's hot.
Oh, it's hot. It's so hot.
Yeah.
There's like the idea of, like, I think it's the shifting of the paradigm to getting the relationship and getting a certain objective to actually feeling the connection right here and right now. And to actually feel somebody, you have to have, like, you're going to press up against edges. And it's the edges that make you feel the person. Like, I've had...
Edges, okay. Describe...
tension.
Edges, tension. Do you have an example that you could give so that the viewer can say, okay, what are they talking about, so that they can maybe jog a memory of somebody that they had an edge with and they didn't realize, no wonder I wanted to, like, have sex with them.
Well, right. I mean, I guess there's two ends of that. You know, there's the edgeless, which is like you're with a person and they're so agreeable and so nice. You know, it's kind of like when we first meet people in our, you know, current culture. It's like you're meeting just a general person that's just, you know, nice and kind and everything. And you kind of like reach out to feel like an edge, like where are you? Like there are people that I've met that are really so agreeable that it's just like, wait a second, I can't feel anything. Like I have to actually press against something to know that there is a human being here.
That you want them to have, like, well, wait, Percy, I don't agree with what you just said. Or you want them to maybe like if you text them, maybe this is why sometimes ghosting creates more of a tension. And does he like me? Does he not? He hasn't got, you know, yes, these are games that we play.
And I think to be a nice guy and be so agreeable actually comes from a place of fear. Because you want to do it right and have that control over the situation, and you don't necessarily want to plant a flag for something that's edgy or defines your borders, because what if you're wrong? What if you get shot down? What if you get rejected? And if I can geek out on Lord of the Rings for a second, you know the ring wraiths, you know the 9 kings that had the ring of the different rings of power, and they wanted power so much, just like leaders and government officials, you know, politicians that pander and say yes to everybody to just kind of get votes. or these kings, they wanted so bad to have ultimate power that they, acquiesced to their values and took these sort of vehicles of power and became neither living nor dead. And they were in this in-between place, like these ring race, these ghosts, and in a way it's like a curse. You gain all this power. I mean, they're this powerful force, but they're also horrible. They feel empty. They've ghosted. They've become ghosts. I remember having online exchange with somebody through one of the dating platforms that I use. I explained to someone in as kind language as I could. I was like, well, it seems like we're not a fit for this or this kind of thing, and that's totally okay. So we can just move on or something. I said something like that, and the response I got was like, they were stupefied that I just said that this isn't going to work out. And I sort of got all these kudos and tip of the hat, like, well, thank you for respecting my time and just saying that this isn't going to work out necessarily, or we might have a difference in values, that we don't, we probably would be friends, but maybe this isn't a dating thing. Because this is important to you, and that's a totally different direction in my life.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of things like
And
that. I want
happens?
kids. I don't want kids. There's all
did that
these
totally
things.
break the connection, or did that create a tension of curiosity?
It actually did create a tension of curiosity. In this case, the other person was just grateful that I responded. They said, so many people don't respond to me, and I'm left waiting with this message in my dating inbox, or like, where did this person go? Should I delete it? Maybe they're about to get back to me. Do I have to respond to give them a friendly ping? Like, hey, I'm still here. And it's like, how do you word that? It's all very awkward, but when someone gives you the gift of having those edges and boundaries and firmness, it can intrigue other people.
Yeah.
I've had a few dates with people where I had set a boundary, and I said, it just doesn't seem like, from your profile, it seems like you're looking for this. In this case, it was monogamy. And I said, it sounds like you're curious. We matched each other's profile, and it looks like we have all these really cool things in common. Like, I bet we'd probably vote pretty similarly. We'd have like a really good time. We'd play this sport together. But in terms of a dating trajectory, I noticed that you listed monogamous, and I have a ethical, open relationship thing going on in my life that's really core to who I am. So, you're such a rad person. I'm sure I'd love to know you in real life if our paths crossed, but obviously we're not going to be dating. C'est la vie. And they wrote back and said, like, actually I've had questions about the whole non-monogamy thing, and it turns out, like, I listed monogamy because that was kind of safe or whatever. I think that's where I'm at, but I am questioning that a little bit. And actually, would you mind maybe meeting up and having a cup of coffee and talking a little about your experience in that world? And lo and behold, there was a really fun connection.
No, but thank you for sharing that story, because I've had that same exact situation where the person was like, boundary, we don't even fit in terms of our values and what you wrote in your profile. And then so there was that tension created. So there was some curiosity towards this person, and then as dates went on, I just said, I'm questioning what I wrote. And so I'm asking you to be a little more flexible, to like let me explore whatever this thing that is not even supposed to work between us.
Right.
And that points to the fact that I think we have to be open to even whatever we read. It's like, this doesn't make sense, but there's something,
or whatever we write.
Whatever we write.
Right, and I think what you're pointing out is, as far as this feeling of something, is that there is a notion of, I am noticing I'm a different human being than you are, which is great, because like we want, in order to have tension, you have to be on different poles in some way. The whole Tantra or Neo-Tantra way of creating sexual chemistry or sexual tension is taken to two opposite poles. However they might call it, masculine, feminine, top, bottom, however you want to characterize that. But that creates the tension. And to step out and say, hey, this is how I'm different from you. It's like, now I feel a solid surface. There's a human being here.
Yeah.
And like this could be interesting, because when there's no surface to press on and everything's equal and everyone's the same and thinks the same thing.
So it's basically saying, oh my God, this whole body is like different. What is this? This is what I'm not usually attracted to, but I'm curious. There's something about the energy of that thing that doesn't conform to my worldviews.
Right.
And what's interesting is how does the person react to that explorative touch? Because you can have two people who have differences, and you interact with one, you go on a date with them, and you find out that their reaction to those differences is not one of collaboration. Like, let's find out where my difference is a gift to you, is a potential future asset and a reframe for you to look at reality maybe the way I do, because that has served me.
Yes.
And by the way, I'm just as willing and have the humility to listen to you, and there's sort of this mutual sense of explorative touch. Whereas other people, I think, you know, the real thing that we might want to have our seismographs attuned to when we go on first dates, second dates, third dates, is do you see the person recoil a little bit? Do they treat differences as a threat? Are they tender? Are they wounded? And, you know, so the tension can go in many different directions.
Yeah.
And I think sort of being able to step back from that and add that additional layer of a sort of a safety check. Is this person safe? Do they co-create with you a safe forum to have those differences and to discuss them in a way that you still feel valued and giving each other the dignity
Which
of being people.
which this particular situation that I'm referring to, we've had long conversations about it, but then the question is, sure, that's really interesting in the short-term dating to try to feel the edge, creating that tension that can add into sexual tension.
Charge,
But if somebody wants a long-term partnership, can this be sustainable? Can these differences, they're huge differences, where you don't even have a whole lot of things in common, is that sustainable in a long-term partnership?
Yeah. Well, it depends.
I don't know. I've never heard something like that, so I have no idea.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I'd say, I've dated people that are very, very different from me, and it's often great, so long as there's a sense of safety between the two people.
Where you feel
there's difference within safety. So if they're so different that we can't be safe, if it's like different in a way that the way that you are isn't even allowed to exist around me, or the way that I am isn't allowed to exist around you, that's difference, but with the sense of it's not okay to be different. But if there's difference with the sense of that's okay, wow, I'm so curious, I would never have that viewpoint, and it's cool that you have that viewpoint, and your viewpoint isn't necessarily something that I'm seeing as toxic to me. I just see it as different.
Yeah. So even if there's a difference in philosophical viewpoints or intellectual viewpoints and stuff, what I have experienced in the past is like, okay, so we don't really get along in that sense, and we've come to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But yet there is like something like that's like an energy that's pulling between us that has invited me to stay in the connection, and part of that is how great it is. In other ways of expression of physical attraction and just that exchange, showing me like, wow, even though we have such differences, I still see the love that's underneath the difference. Like I still feel the love. I feel the safety in that love. So I may feel criticized and judged for core parts of me, but that's not done with malicious intent. It's done because we're so different, and this other person is trying to like, what the heck is going on? I'm not supposed to be attracted to her, and I'm feeling the same thing. I'm not supposed to be feeling attracted to him, but something is pulling us. Like, what is this? So how do you explain that? Is that still the edge? Yeah, we've like touched the edge and explored the edge of differences, but there's a commonality here where underneath there is respect.
It's interesting you use the term supposed to, in the sense that there's all this on paper stuff.
Yes.
But there's sort of like our our left side of the brain where we, do sort
Logical,
of language
yeah,
and thinking
yeah,
and conceptualizing and writing flowcharts on whiteboards of like the person's assets and their liabilities and all of that. But then when you get together with them, there is an emotional terrain that is deep, it's primal, it's our first language from being kids. They say that somewhere between 50 to 80% of meaning is conveyed through nonverbal communication.
Right.
And we pick up, we're sensors, we pick up these signals and transmissions, and maybe there is an electric sexual charge or attraction charge that exists underneath, like an aquifer that exists underneath our core values, some of which might be genuine philosophical riffs, like pro-life, pro-choice.
Yeah.
How much do I want to enmesh myself with someone who has, what might be just a absolute deal breaker of a philosophical riff?
From the logical point of view,
and yet is there, like Rumi said, out behind or beyond the concepts of right and wrong is a field, and I'll meet you there. Like, does the other person have the capability, have the map to get to that field and to explore what connection might be there despite the rift? And your hand is on the rudder to adjust the degree of enmeshment, safe enmeshment that you feel capable of with a person as they are. And the key way to do that is to be in the present. Like one of my long-term partners, we have this lifelong commitment to be in each other's lives indefinitely, insofar as the other person wants that. And we constantly check in. We sort of have a monthly check-in during the new moon. We have a little new moon. It sounds like really woo-woo and cheesy, but not the full moon, which is like kind of wacky and werewolfy, but like the quiet, dark new moon as we check in. How's the relationship going? What are we feeling? What are some things that have come up? We're rooted in the present. Our finger is on the pulse of the everyday of ourselves and the other person. And that's where the hand is on the rudder as you feel the wind of life and circumstance and feel the wind generated by the other person's values. How close can you get? How far do you need to be to protect yourself and yet honor a potential form of connection? There might be a great sexual way of relating to that person, which might open up a gateway to further safety. Maybe you can't find that field of safety if you just go on a bunch of coffee dates and you're being very heady and you're relating intellectually. But maybe if you just go for it and have a friends with benefits for a couple of months, and then you both wake up and you're like, wow, for some reason I feel safer talking with you and about some of these rifts and these differences in a way that isn't critical or attacking, but is curious and inquisitive.
And I think, how they say makeup sex can kind of like negate everything that you've been arguing about. And you wonder, like, makeup sex, we're going down into primal, we're holding out lots of conflict, anger, frustrations. You're trying to talk it out through the logical head. It's not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
We just need to fuck this out. And
right. Well, the energy is the energy of that whole conflict is in the body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have it, when we try to keep it up here, it's like none of this is moving.
Yes.
And in order for people to transform, they have to move all of this. And so, and sexuality is a great way of doing that. There's other ways of using your body to move that energy as well. But definitely getting down into something primal.
And especially if you feel safe with each other sexually, and usually most people, are going to have angry sex after they've already had like non-angry sex in the beginning of the dating process. And then you wonder, okay, is this going to last? How often are we going to have angry sex, and is that sustainable?
And you don't know if it's sustainable until you clock in week after month. Sometimes on the day to day, you have your finger on that pulse.
Yeah.
But having, connected sex, which I like to call leveling down instead of leveling up. But there's this whole balance. Like, you have couples or duos that are in this cycle of argument, maybe even almost on again, off again relationships. We're breaking up, we're getting back together, and then we have angry sex. But there's, to check in with yourself, there might be a point at which you see into the future or into the present that there's an exhaustion level, that the energy input output is ultimately more eroding you on a granular level. You notice that, like, compared to 3 months ago, it's like you have a little less, and that sex is good, but it might not be sustainable. So to be able to be radically honest with yourself and saying what isn't sustainable, I think a lot of us are afraid of letting an opportunity go, like the one that got away.
Yes, the fear of loss.
As opposed to sort of let things go. If it's meant to be yours, it comes back to you, and having an open mind. But
open mind that this could have its own expiration date.
Right. And even with the notion of unsustainability, like when you reach that point that Kel's talking about, where, I guess to speak for myself, when I reached the point where Kel's talking about, where it's like, okay, if things, it seems unsustainable, but that's if things continue the same way. Mm-hmm. So if I speak for the part of me that believes that, hey, this seems to be headed somewhere that's unsustainable, and there's something going on inside of me, the other person might see that, oh yeah, I see that too, or they might want to, like, well, what could I do to help that, or to adjust that? It's always a constant adjustment. When you use the rudder analogy, like, you might be headed towards the shore and you see that, you can always correct for it when you speak for it. So it doesn't have to be, I need to logically decide now whether this relationship as a whole is sustainable or not. Mm-hmm. I just need to speak for what's happening for me right in this moment.
In the present.
And that gives us a chance to really, take it somewhere. So it's more of a present relationship than a relationship up here that we need to figure out whether it's going to work or whether it's not. That's a huge question.
We don't
know.
And then what you've taught me a lot is about, like, when you recognize that another person is in their feminine energy, which means they're expressing anger, frustration, whatever it is they don't like about you. Mm-hmm. The natural way that a lot of people would participate in that is they get defensive. My natural inclination is, if somebody's like saying that they don't like something, the way that I show up or whatever, then I felt myself getting defensive. But I did this because of that. That was never my intent. And then you said, Emily, stop it. Just take the masculine pull and just say,
yeah.
I got you. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me
and
what
I'm really
else
curious about what more they write. Right. What is that like for you?
Yeah. What more don't you like about me? Mm-hmm. And then so that and that just diffuses, like,
because you've demonstrated that you're not afraid of that discussion.
I welcome all these parts. Amazing. I find you sexy when you're ranting like this and criticizing me. Yeah. I get it. I hear you. I hear the feedback. So that is creating the polarity, because this person's like, wait a minute, I'm ranting and raving. Every other person that I've ranted and raved to is like in the argument with me, but she's like, welcome. Oh, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. They're holding space for the whole person and all of their parts.
And the whole spectrum of who they can be.
Yeah.
Which is why I personally, as a habit, I've and I know the tantric community is a little different with this, but I've degendered a lot of the terms that a lot of people traditionally say is masculine or feminine.
Right.
Only because, there's, that poster, it came out, it was like a meme about 10 years ago, and it's sort of written in pink and blue, so it's still a little binary, but, for every girl who wants to climb trees and play sports and be strong, there's a boy who wants to be, feminine and try on and, have some sparkle and some flair.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's this accidental disservice that we do for people in dating and in conceptualizing ourselves to say this is a masculine trait, when in reality, it's just being a strong person.
Yes,
not a
it's
masculine
just being
person.
human. It's
so
just being
the way we label those poles can sometimes, we can put ourselves into boxes for being all the fullness that we can be and what we bring to other people and bring to our dating relationships, because we've been painted into a corner in terms of what we think, how we're allowed to be. As a man, am I allowed to express my feelings? Am I allowed to get a little weepy or outright cry at in different contexts? Mm-hmm. And we don't, to cut that off from each other is to do ourselves and others a disservice. So to expand that safe space to push against the edge and have a controversial disagreement in safety is knows no gender.
Yeah, and I must say, like doing what we do and me trying to walk my talk of what we teach. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, it's the stuff is hard. Even though our audience, they don't know, we're trying to teach it, and they're trying to like, how do I do this? So even as the expert, it's like, do it in the moment. It's hard. It's hard for you too, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm wondering, because I've been thinking about that for a while, as far as in tantra communities and tantra circles, and finding words to degender something that is in every human being, and even in tantra circles, they will say that every human being has what tantra would call masculine and what tantra would call feminine. Because it's a culturally loaded term, masculine and feminine.
Yeah, our language is structurally just does that to us, or
Exactly.
and with us, we're complicit in that as well. Even though there's this bell curve, like I could get a sports team of 25 dudes, people, who have male genitalia, like biologically sexed men, on one side of a soccer team, and then you get the other soccer team. They're all like 5'6", 5'7", and then you get an entire soccer team of women who are like 6'3" and 6'4", and I mean you can find those two soccer teams, and those Amazon women, which is probably that's a problematic statement right there.
Okay.
It's just like to ethnicize like Amazon women as though it's this. But you have a group of women that are tall and strong, and their legs can just for every 3 strides they're going 10 yards, and these guys are 5'4", and they have to take 10 strides to get the same distance across the field.
Sure.
We know there's this bell curve, and it's bigger than we think, and there's different points of axes. You've got strengths, but you have emotion, you have artistic ability, you have emotional resonance, you have those stereotypical physical qualities that we like to idealize, and it's really hard because the current is going in a certain direction, and it's easier to swim with the current.
Right.
It's harder to do the extra thought work to reconceptualize all these terms, which is why it's such a battle to get people to say humanity instead of mankind, or to staff a table instead of manning it, to rough handle instead of manhandle. There's alternative ways to say it, but you have to be a little clever, because it's just we've been raised with this stuff.
Right.
So what are the main points that we really want to make in this video? I'm thinking that it's all about not looking at any of the rules and just going by, yes, your logic is saying certain things, but go by your gut and be more curious and let things unfold, even if it's somebody that you said, I should not be liking this person. I should not be dating this person.
Should, right.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from?
It's
Yeah.
a marriage of the
head.
logic and the
Yes.
emotional.
Right, so including what's down here, and it everything converges into what's happening right here, right now, in your body.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've had people on dating apps where they are writing this big novel. It's like, oh my gosh, I think you are the love of my life. I love everything that you wrote about you, that you wrote about yourself.
Wow.
Well, I get several of those,
Uh-huh.
right? Because I'm pretty expressive and like, this is who I am. This is what my turn-ons are. This is what my ideal
it out
partner
there,
would be.
yeah.
I put it out there because otherwise I get a lot. I still get a lot of not my type of men coming through, and I said, and I would be nice and say, okay, I'm not feeling it. This is a romantic match, and then they would come back and they would say, but why? Tell me what you're not attracted to about me. So here is what is what I have said. I said, I'm just like a guy. And the first thing that has to appeal to me is that initial attraction. I'm swiping left just like you're swiping left.
Mm-hmm.
And if that
And I've got some preferences just like you do.
Right,
Like guys
right,
with beards or not with beards.
Exactly.
I'm going to be absolutely judging books by covers.
Yeah,
just like you.
And a guy with a motorcycle, a guy with like certain things, you're not even close to where I am. So there's a lot of guys, in the middle, like average. You pass the initial look. Mm-hmm. And then there's the rare guy that's like, oh my gosh, this guy looks like a movie star, but I don't know if it's a real profile. So most of the guys fall in that middle, but the couple of guys have said, but why aren't you attracted to me? They have fallen beneath that 50% line. So I basically, and my lecturing part's like, attraction is not a choice.
Right.
Attraction is not a choice. This is like biology. Good luck. I just cannot believe that a man cannot even understand that women have the same type of wiring. We gotta be attracted.
Mm-hmm.
And this is right where I'm doing, like, ask the bi guy. My whole shtick is that, the person who's bisexual, pansexual has, maybe using my super secret bi powers, I can help men, women, and genderqueer people parse out some of the nuances of this. There's that marriage of the heart and the logic, the should, but yet I am attracted,
yes.
and how to reconcile that. And in a way, it's like, it's true, we don't, like, I feel like on one hand I don't have a choice in who I'm attracted to, but I do have a choice in the kind of person I'm curating myself to be through self-development and intra-personal awareness of myself. And as I change, that choice that I don't have any control over changes. The profile of the person I'm attracted to today is radically different than 3 years ago, in a good way, through a lot of hard work and therapy to get to the feelings underneath the intellectualization of things that might not be serving us so well. Like a lot of masculinity scripts are not serving us so well. Okay. So my core point in dating and relationships and the whole ask the bi guy thing is to help people with that very thing. I think we're saying a lot of the same things, that holistic marriage of our ability to intellectualize and conceptualize the shoulds, the on papers, the check boxes, but how does that square with our intuition, that the lights on the dashboard that I can't quite put words to,
yes.
but are need to be honored and elevated. Like the primal is not less than the heady, elevated conceptualization. That's why I like calling it leveling down instead of leveling up. We need to restore that balance between feeling our way through things and honoring that, as well as finding words and intellectualizations to what we think we should be, who we think we should be attracted to.
Yeah, and so with all the different scenarios that I've gotten myself into, what I'm recognizing is, sure, they gotta have the elementary checkbox of being educated and carry on the conversation with me, right? But and me being physically attracted. At the end of the day, all those other things that I may list on my profile, sure, a couple of them are important, but it's how they make me feel. Feel at that primal level. Do I feel seen? Do I feel respected? Do I feel acknowledged? Or like, okay, even if whatever's going on in the bedroom, do I feel like it's all about them and their pleasure? They're only giving me pleasure so they could get off and be done with it. It's like, versus the guy that's like, no, you can take all the time you want. I'm just enjoying the pleasure of watching you take all the time that you want. It's like, whoa, and it's like, how important does that play into the picture? And then
so like, is there a real like felt connection there? Do you feel the human being, and is that a feeling of genuine connection? And
then do I, and oftentimes, and I think maybe this is an occupational hazard with what we do, there have been times where I knew I should have not let a certain connection go on longer, but because of the compassion that I have for, whoa, they're like projecting their stuff onto me, whatever I triggered in them, their insecurities, instead of me like judging their self-centered parts. It's like, I get where that's coming from. It's like I see like through the little boys in them that need to prove themselves to me because for some reason I activated their insecurities. Am I man enough? Am I handsome enough? Am I, do I have enough money to like be with Emily? Smart enough, whatever it is. Like, and that kind of thing doesn't even matter to me. But because I see the resultant behavior that other women may be turned off by, I'm just like, I get it.
But because you're developed and have that compassion, it's one of those cases of our greatest strength can occasionally be a downside because you want to give people. I think one of the best things about being human is giving people the benefit of the doubt.
And
in so doing, you have to balance that with whether or not this is a thing that you want to carry on
Like,
for
be
longer.
very clear about where you are at the same time as being compassionate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to really be communicative of that, because people will interpret that as, oh, this person likes me and loves who I am. One might love who you are and be open to you and be open to being there with you. Doesn't necessarily mean there's attraction there. Those are two different things.
It's not black and white, it's lots of gray.
Sounded like you had, sort of a core thing, and I sort of said like, oh yeah, I'm coming at it from a different angle, but I'm sort of in very much the same place that all of life is holistic.
Yes,
and I do,
I like that.
want to do dating coaching and online profiles, nonverbal communication, and how to, have confidence. And from a healing and helping people from your perspective, and you see a lot of people talking about their pain and their struggles, like what are the avenues that you see in sort of where you're coming from that people could benefit from in terms of their relationship outlook in the dating process? Monogamous, non-monogamous, whatever, it's all kind of the same.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
same
I think
place.
it's very similar. It goes down to the holistic nature and I like the term that you use, leveling down, because there's so much piled onto. We think we know we need to know more and gather more information and plan ahead further and further and further. And we're getting away from what our body actually needs and wants and desires and craves. And to really say, okay, these are awesome aspects of who we are. It's great that we can plan ahead into the future.
Yeah.
It's great that we can look forward and see, is this sustainable or not, or do we have a lot in common? And to take that, to say a yes and to have that step back and say, how does my body actually feel when I'm around this person? Because the body has a lot to tell us, and the quality,
Yes.
and what the quality of
Yes.
the connection
Yes.
is.
Yes.
It's
And to
that
use
gut
that
reaction, yeah.
As more information, is more, and right, there's more information to help determine and help us to guide where we go in this connection.
Yeah.
And so leveling down, getting people to down to the the source of who they are, the meaning behind why they're here, and the things that really drive us and really make us tick. So many people are disconnected from that. So that's how I see it, from a healing perspective. But it sounds very similar to what you do from even a business perspective.
Yeah.
It's the same thing,
Yeah.
getting down into what makes us really human. What's the
Yeah.
source of our humanity?
Yeah, and it's
And
just
how do
like
we carry
checking.
that
Yeah,
forward?
and it's so that I think the main message is, sure, check in with all of your intellectual parts and your logical parts and what it wants to say, but ultimately, really check in with your body and what does your intuition want to say, and bring that up. And this can probably be a better decision maker than all the logic.
Yeah.
And how do you really feel at
Yeah.
that gut level?
Yeah. How do I shut up and listen to my feelings and stop obsessively trying to put them into words, but just sit there and breathe and check
Yeah.
in?
Especially because relationships are not necessarily just intellectual. Relationships are real, real,
Yeah.
primal, body to body things
Yeah.
that are natural. We've been doing relationships since we were infants, before we had an intellect.
And especially
Yep.
the people who have also shut down their feelings because they were not accepted when they were a kid.
Yeah, they're
And they
numb.
cried. Yeah,
numb.
yeah. So those are the people that really need to do therapy or do something to
Yeah.
try to get in touch with their feelings. Go to workshops where they're gonna make you feel things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I
Well-
was in touch with my feelings, and boy, was I not in touch with my feelings.
Yeah.
You know what?
Well, this
Maybe,
is
maybe
really
so, okay.
cool.
You know what?
Great.
Maybe the next video, let's make on feelings.
I love
that's-
that, and how to get down into this.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for this one. It's about get out of your head and listen to your body, and don't box yourself in about what you should and shouldn't do.
Yep.
In next video, we'll start talking about how to do that.
Yes. Okay.
Can't wait.
Cool. Thank you.